Well, to be honest, I'm not proud of this, but Mumford & Sons is the reason I picked up the guitar. Like I don't know, the sound when I heard them in middle school, like, was the reason I was like, okay, that sounds cool. Like, guitars sound really cool. Like, I wasn't really, like, no, I'd heard a lot of good music and a lot of music with guitars, but for some reason, like, it was actually when the protests were going on, when they were cutting funding for the teachers or whatever, or rolling back on their benefits and such. There was all these montages of like people going to the Capitol to protest, and one of the montage videos had The Cave on it. And I watched the montage video, and literally that's the reason why I started playing guitar. But you know, I mean, so many different artists like inspired me to just like, I don't know, I just would, every time I watched a live show or every time I saw a different artist playing, like, it just, you know, it's just like I knew I wanted to like do that. I knew I wanted to be up there. I knew I wanted to make music. I don't know if I transformed it yet. I still got a long way to go. But I definitely have a niche. At least what I get from other people is that I kind of have a very specific angle about it, or a sound that is very unique, and I don't know, there's not many folk artists that are trying to make it anymore, and whether my music's folk or not, I think it is. Like, I'm kind of the only one around town doing that sort of thing. So I guess being a beacon to other artists, you know, not being afraid to play around and to really follow through with the sound that I made, and kind of almost pander in a way, because so many people have tried to make me like do what's popular or what's happening, and like people tell me that like guitars aren't really the thing anymore, and that you like people don't really like, I don't know, even if I don't make it big or whatever, like I have so much fun doing it, and that's what I love to do. So I guess just being a beacon for guitar players, for singer-songwriters in the area. My audience, I would say my friends are my audience, my family is definitely my audience, and people that appreciate just like pretty sounding music, I guess. Like, I've always yearned to make ethereal sounds, you know, just like vibes, and like I just really like pretty sounds, basically. Other students at Madison, I've gotten really good feedback from people, and I don't know, people tell me that it just brings joy to them. So like definitely a lot of students and people who are going through things sometimes, because I feel like a lot of my music comes from a place of struggle, but it comes from a place of struggle not to like bask in the struggle, to be like stuck in a rut and kind of just like complaining and whining, but more just like coming from a struggle and trying to make something positive out of it, and trying to do something good out of it. So I definitely think my audience is people that are like trying to overcome adversity and become a better person out of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because I'm like a weirdo, pretty much. I guess I had a lot of weird things happen to me in high school, and I kind of just was like, it was kind of speaking on like what I saw around me from people and how they were acting. I just saw a lot of people being so fickle, and I kind of tied it into us being young and still trying to figure out how to be emotionally available and how to love the world properly and how to love others properly. And then I kind of saw a lot of, you know, like people with good intentions kind of being cruel, not on purpose, but just because they're just immature and ignorant and still kind of figuring out who they are, and kind of in the journey to find who you are. I mean, everyone makes mistakes, but I saw just a lot of people being just very fickle and and I guess I found myself being fickle sometimes, so it was kind of just like, kind of hard to explain these sorts of things, because it's like, I don't know, it's kind of spur of the moment, and I was like, this works, I'm gonna follow through with it, because it starts to sound stupid when I try to explain it, but when I made it, it was just kind of like, that's the name, you know? And I didn't really need a reason, it was just like, I'm doing it because it was fun, I made it, and I didn't need the title. My greatest success? The most salient thing right now is probably, I don't know, because ever since I've started trying to be a musician or whatever, like, I'm kind of fumbling around the place trying to figure out how to do it. Finding, like, kind of like establishing myself a little bit more and just like solidifying the persona, the idea behind the music has been my greatest success, because now I can kind of like build around that, and it's not, because like without the solidification of the idea, without the solidification of the persona, I was, you know, kind of building on quicksand, you know, just like everything I did was like not really backed up by anything, not really established. I don't know, I built so many strong connections, and so many people, meeting so many people that are just like, keep doing it, I think you have promise, like, I love your voice, whatever, blah blah blah, like, kind of just establishing a somewhat of a community behind it, and with the Urban Ecology Center, I've been working with them a lot, and so now I realize that I want to combo like my like love of science and my love of nature with my love of music, and that kind of, it's all starting to kind of come together. Like, people at the Urban Ecology Center recognize that after me being around the center and playing there, now I'm involved, like literally playing at the Urban Ecology Center. It's just like, I don't know, it's not the biggest thing, but it's like, I don't know, it's really cool to me because I love that place and I love what they're about, and that's what I'm about. So it's just like, I'm finding that community, and that's been a really, really big accomplishment, really big success step towards what I want to do, I guess. Definitely gave a lot of heart, gave a lot of soul, gave a lot of time, so much time and vulnerability. I left myself, you know, it's very exposing to play music that can be so personal at times, and I think giving that vulnerability, like, is a lot to give sometimes, but it's a good thing. I've given that I want to use it to like talk about the environment, challenge people in that way, use my music to kind of do community-based work, you know. I've learned a lot from it about who I am and what I want to do, I guess, like, through all the times that I've, like, you know, because it took like playing a lot of shitty shows before I played good shows, you know what I mean? So really learning to put yourself out there and learning how to kind of follow through with it, and to kind of fake it until you make it, sort of thing. Is gonna fool you. Personally, I want to get a full-length album. That's what I'm working on right now. Self-titled Bear the Forest album. I'd like to release it next year. I don't know exactly when, probably in the first 3 months of the next year, like January, February, March. Yeah. And yeah, getting that project out is probably the most up to that goal. And solidifying like the medias and a team, like, of people. I've been working with someone who makes videos, a videographer, and photographers and people that make logos, and I have a friend who works with Sony during an internship right now, and he's learning a lot about the music industry, and he wants to manage me. So like getting a team of people, and always to just keep writing more music, but to really solidify that sort of like the facade of your being an artist, you know, because there's a lot of structure that you have to put up, like with logos and pictures and kind of and videos, and kind of really showing people that you like who you are and what you're about and what you're trying to do, and that you're an artist and that it's for real. It kind of takes a lot of like marketing almost. So my next goal is definitely like getting that sort of thing going, and the album.
My city, my place. My city, my place. Hey.
Music is music, but I think I've definitely tried to use the environment or nature as a metaphor, and relating it to people's lives, and relating it to overcoming adversity, and also utilizing nature and utilizing natural spaces to overcome adversity. You know, so I think my lyrics definitely are more and more, at least, trying to challenge people in that sort of way. And also, you know, I also just kind of make songs about like water or something, or things like that, where it's like these are natural elements. So it kind of ties in. Like I'll use nature metaphorically in a sense to talk about like my life or something I went through. And so that's kind of just like a big metaphor in itself, and there's so many metaphors that you can make with like the real world and nature and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I kind of think in metaphors. It's cryptic, and it kind of doesn't always come out how I want it to, but if you step outside and really look, you can find so much life.
I believe it's all about education. If you recall the Iowa Test of Basic Skills in the 80s, Wisconsin and Minnesota and Iowa had the highest results. So as a result of that, many Hmong wanted a great education for their children, because they feel and they know that education is the key to moving out of poverty.
Yeah.
My family and I became refugees overnight in May of 1975. You could appreciate that, from a very happy, free-spirited young girl to overnight being forced to leave the country, otherwise we would be executed. And so overnight, my parents decided that we would have to escape to Thailand to be free, otherwise we would be executed because of the involvement during the Vietnam War. Some of you may know that the Hmong were allies to the Americans during the Vietnam War, and as a result of being an ally to the Americans, we were hunted down once the communists took over Southeast Asia.
Feeling as you look?
When we were in the refugee camps, I remember being cold and hungry. I remember as a child we had to line up for food and wait for the great donations or generosity of other people. I know that when we were in the refugee camps, we didn't have much food to eat and any shelter to live. And so I remember my father made a tarp over our head, and we were surrounded by cardboards. With that, we made the most of it. I was 10 at that time, and so you could appreciate that I didn't speak any English. None of my family members spoke any English. And so my sister and I, she was 12 at that time and I was 10, and so we had to learn English as fast as we can. We became parents to our parents. We became parents to our siblings because we were able to learn English as much as possible, as fast as we can. And so as a result of that, we shouldered the burden of being parents to our parents. We did lots of translation. We went to the grocery store and bought food. One time, it was my dad's first time buying a car, and so here I am, 13 years old, trying to negotiate with the salesperson to bring the price down. And finally, I remember the salesman said, "Well, young lady, you drive a hard bargain." And so these are some of the things that I remember a child and then becoming an adult at a young age, because there was the survival skills that my sister and I needed to make sure that my family and I can survive in the United States, knowing that English was the top priority, and then making sure that we have the food on the table. My family and I were sponsored by a small Dutch Reformed church and a small community, and so we were the only Hmong family in that small community. So we became very quickly acquainted with the American culture. It was not until when I married my husband that I moved here to Milwaukee that I realized that there's a large Hmong community in Milwaukee here, and so I feel that when I move into from a family of just one to about 7,000 in this community, I realized that the Hmong had a great impact in the community and an opportunity to make sure that they are productive citizens and not takers of society. We have. My husband and I were given a wonderful opportunity in 2000, April 2000, to go back to the refugee camps and to see how much we have come, but more importantly, to make a circle complete. And so in 2000, my husband and I went back to Thailand and visited the refugee camps and realized that without education, there's just hopelessness and helplessness. And so that's when we decided to come back to the United States and felt that we can make a difference. And so with that, my husband encouraged me to go back to Alverno to get my principal license. And so that's the start of Hmong American Peace Academy. You know, when I came to the United States, I did not know who I am, where I came from, and where I belong. And so I was living in two worlds. I was living in the American world and then in the Hmong world, and I felt that the two worlds were collided all the time. And my Hmong name is New, but when I came to the United States, because I was living in two worlds and two conflicts, I changed my given name to Chris because I thought I could have an American name and be Americanized. But little did I know that without our heritage, we are nothing. And so on that note, when we started the school, the community leaders and parents felt that it's just as important for our young people to know who they are and where they come from so that they could move forward and be productive. And so when we started the school, we felt that the cultural strength is important, teaching our young people who they are so that they could move forward and be productive citizens. And so absence of that, that I think that we're just running around in circle and not truly understand who we are, where we come from, and we would not be productive individual. And so I felt very strongly that knowing who you are and where you can be in the world so that you could give back. And I think it goes back to being informed of who you are, being inspired of the potentials that you can contribute to your society, and then be more, and that is to do more. There's great hope. There's great hope. There's this faith and courage that, you know, for my parents, we call it the Hmong. For my generation, we call it the Hmong American. And I believe that for my children and their children generation, it's going to be the American Hmong. There's a difference. You know, my parents, they claim themselves to be Hmong. So even they live in the United States, they consider themselves Hmong. For my generations, I believe that I'm a Hmong American. But for my children, and I believe their children, they would consider themselves American Hmong. And so there's great hope. We've been studying and keeping the census, and so we've seen that the achievement gap is we're closing on the achievement gap. With the closing of the achievement gap, the poverty rate is going closing on that too. And so there is great hope that through education, our people will be able to be self-sufficient, to provide for themselves, for their families, and then of course for the community. I believe that education is to create the purpose of education is to create possibilities. And I believe that whether it be in K-4 or middle school or in high school, that we all have the ability to create possibilities for our young people, particularly in high school more than anything. And so I believe that's why I invest in education, is because the purpose of education is to create possibilities. And with that possibilities, young people can rise up and be self-sufficient for themselves. And I always say, if you could dream it, you could achieve it. And I believe that that holds deeply and truthfully to our high school young people. I believe that as freshmen or seniors, you can dream all you want and make sure that you have the good GPA and work hard so that you can go to the college of your choice and follow the dream that you set for yourself. And so I think that's why, I believe that's why I invest in young people's education. My greatest desire is that the young people that graduate from here become servant leaders for themselves, for their families, and for the community. When we are servant leaders, we give back instead of be takers of society. And I believe that that's the greatest gift that we can instill on anyone, is to serve our own community. But you know, until you could help yourself, until you could be self-sufficient, you can't serve others. And so our goal is to first attain the college and get the degree, as well as have a job, a career, so that you can give back, whether it be volunteer or donation of your time or your finance. What we do here is the high school students would volunteer as servant leaders to their younger grades, whether it be just reading with them or coaching them or mentoring them. Also, our alumni return back to our high school and work with our high school students, being a big brother or big sister to our young people. For example, our alumni returns on an annual basis in October and really have a great offer words of wisdom to our seniors and our juniors to make sure that you look at the college that is a good match for you, and more importantly, that college will allow you to be successful and not just be a number, but be a face in that community so that you can succeed. And the goal is not to go to college, but more importantly, through college.
The community was the best part. I had friends at Sunday school and my whole family would go together. It was what we did together. I remember really loving the church picnic. We would all be outside and play games and eat potato salad. And I think it gave me a sense of connectedness that was bigger than my family, but more intimate than school. I decided it right before I went into seminary. I had a sense that I had a purpose, but I didn't know what it was. I spent years looking for that thing that was calling me more deeply, and I didn't know what it was or what I was supposed to do. And then one night when I was having dinner with one of my mentors and my best friend, and we were all talking about our lives, my mentor asked me to close my eyes and picture my perfect day. And I resisted doing that. But once I finally closed my eyes and pictured my perfect day, I knew immediately that I would be doing healing work on my perfect day. And I opened my eyes and I said, what does that mean? There's no job called healer. And I was like, well, there's therapy, but I don't really want to do that for this reason. And there's teaching, but I don't really want to do that. And then I said, there's ministry. And both my best friend and my mentor sort of leaned in and were like, yes? As though they knew something that I didn't. And I said, well, and I started making excuses about ministry. And for whatever reason, that night, I saw what I was doing. I saw that I was just making up excuses. And so I played a thought experiment on myself. I said, what if I just stop doing that for a second and see what it feels like? So I just stopped making up excuses why I couldn't do ministry. And in that moment, it felt like this enormous weight had been lifted off of my shoulders. Like it was a very physical feeling. And my shoulders got lighter and my body got lighter, and I started to feel sort of floaty and tingly. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be a minister. And my best friend and my mentor both like started clapping. And they were like, we've been waiting for you to figure this out. And I was like, why didn't anybody tell me? And I started looking at seminaries the next day. I was their founder. So there was a Unitarian Universalist group called UU Ministry for Earth, and they wanted to be more connected with youth and young adults. And so they actually created a position called, I think think it was the young adult coordinator or something like that. But they hired somebody to do that organizing work, and so they hired me. I was working very part-time. I forget, like 10 hours a week or something like that. But I started by just doing interviews with young adults, UU young adults, asking them what they wanted and what they needed in terms of doing environmental justice work or climate justice work. And I did, I don't know, maybe 50 or so interviews with young adults who were either working on environmental issues or working on climate issues, asking them what it is that they wanted. And again, I heard that they wanted to be more connected with each other, that they wanted a way to organize together, a way to learn from each other, a way to share what they were doing, but also learn from other young adults what sort of work they were doing in their cities or states. So I said, well, let's try to make a climate justice network. And then I started building out that network by connecting the people with each other, creating communication systems, and then trying to create smaller, localized networks where, you know, there were 15 young adults working on climate justice in the Bay Area. So, you know, could those folks get together? And there was a group working in Southern California, and so I would go to like the Central Midwest District UU Young Adult meeting and connect people with each other. I think I did that for 2 years, maybe a year and a half, something like that. And then I graduated from seminary and I went to do my ministry internship, and they hired another coordinator, Allie Tharp, who is still doing that work, I believe. And the climate justice networks, the Young Adult Climate Justice Network still exists and is still active on climate justice in Unitarian Universalist circles. I think I've received a lot more than I've given. This faith has changed my life. It has given me a space to be my full self. My theology is pretty broad, but I have different specific practices, and Unitarian Universalism is the place that can hold all of me. Where I can be my full self. And there are not a lot of places that allow you to be your full self in the world. It's given me a place to rest. It's given me some of my best friends and colleagues in the world, people who I look up to and respect and have learned a great deal from. It's provided the container for me to live out my purpose. I think what I've given back to Unitarian Universalism is some of the climate justice work. So organizing the Young Adults for Climate Justice Network, working for divestment for the Unitarian Universalist Association to divest from fossil fuels. I'm the co-editor of a book that is about to be published in January, so with my colleague, the Reverend Manish Mishra Marzetti, I've been co-editing this book called Justice on Earth, talking about Unitarian Universalism and environmental justice, and thinking through what it means to do justice work with an intersectional lens, i.e., instead of having silos of justice work, this is the silo where we do racial justice. This is the silo where we do climate justice. This is the silo where we focus on gender and sexuality. Actually connecting those things to each other in a larger understanding of the intersecting power relationships and intersecting oppressions and how they affect whole people and whole people's lives. And how do we engage in that work, specifically as Unitarian Universalists, from our faith perspective? There's a Sweet Honey in the Rock song in which one of the lyrics talks about having faith in the younger generation who has the courage to run against the storm. And every time I hear that lyric of that song, I am filled with gratitude and pride and hope, because the younger generation does have the courage, I think, to run against the storm. And youth and young adults bring a new perspective and a creativity to social justice work that is specific to the way that they grew up and the lives that they lived, and that is free from the shackles of expectations of the past. So I think there's truth that as people age, they get wiser, and they have all of their years of experience behind them that informs them about how the world works, and that's a real gift too. But the youth bring a lack of that, which in sometimes can be a detriment, but also can be a real sense of freedom and offers creativity that is new and that you don't see when your mind is already trained to think a particular way or to assume the world works in a particular way. And youth bring courage and a lack of fear and a strength and a ferocity that inspires me and gives me hope.